Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. The following content is provided strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. Social media marketing involves rapidly evolving digital landscapes, algorithmic shifts, and third-party platform policies that are subject to change without notice. This video does not constitute professional business, legal, or financial advice. Success in digital marketing depends on various factors including individual effort, market conditions, and budget. We strongly advise all viewers to conduct their own thorough due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before making significant business investments or strategic pivots. By the time you finish watching this video, the social media landscape will have already shifted. In 2026, the traditional playbook for social media marketing, the one involving daily posting, generic hashtags, and basic engagement, is not just outdated. It is a recipe for total invisibility. We are currently witnessing the greatest transition in digital attention since the invention of the smartphone. Recent industry data indicates that over 70% of organic reach now originates from AI-curated discovery feeds rather than follower-based timelines. If you are still trying to build a brand using 2023 tactics, you are essentially trying to run a marathon in quicksand. Most beginners fail within the first 90 days because they focus on vanity metrics like follower counts while ignoring the underlying architecture of the modern attention economy. I have seen creators and small business owners pour thousands of dollars into content that yields zero conversions because they misunderstood the fundamental shift from social networking to interest-based entertainment. This masterclass is designed to prevent that. We are going to deconstruct the current state of the market and show you the exact framework used by the top 1% of digital agencies to scale brands in an era dominated by hyper-personalized algorithms and generative media. The core problem we are solving today is the noise-to-signal ratio. In 2026, the barrier to entry for content creation has dropped to near zero thanks to integrated AI tools, which means the volume of content being uploaded is at an all-time high. For a beginner, this is terrifying. How do you stand out when a billion other people are using the same tools? The answer lies in the strategic synthesis of human psychology and algorithmic alignment. This video is the first part of a comprehensive 10-part masterclass that will take you from having zero digital presence to managing a sophisticated marketing ecosystem. We are moving past the surface-level fluff. We are going to discuss the mechanics of viral loops, the shift toward community-owned platforms, and why your niche selection is the most critical decision you will make this year. To understand where we are going, we must look at the historical trends of the last decade. From 2010 to 2020, social media was about the graph. It was about who you knew. If you followed a person, you saw their content. This created a massive advantage for early adopters who could hoard followers. However, by 2026, we have fully transitioned into the interest age. Platforms no longer care who you follow, they care what you watch. This is an incredible opportunity for beginners, because it means you do not need a pre-existing audience to reach millions of people. A brand new account created today has the same mathematical probability of reaching a global audience as an account with 1 million followers, provided the content architecture is sound. We will analyze case studies of brands that launched in late 2025 and reached mid-seven-figure valuations within 6 months by leveraging these specific discovery mechanics. Let us look at the data regarding consumer behavior in 2026. The average user now spends upwards of 3 hours a day on social platforms, but their attention span for non-relevant content has shrunk to less than 2 seconds. If your marketing does not provide immediate value or psychological stimulation within that window, you are skipped. This is why we are starting this series by focusing on the foundation of your strategy. You cannot build a high-conversion funnel on top of a weak identity. We will be breaking down the 3 pillars of 2026 social media marketing: intentional identity, algorithmic literacy, and conversational conversion. The first pillar, intentional identity, involves more than just a logo or a color palette. It is about the specific cognitive space your brand occupies in the mind of the consumer. In 2026, generalists are dying. If you try to market to everyone, the algorithm will struggle to categorize your content, leading to a fragmented audience and low engagement rates. Historical trends show that the most successful entry-level marketers are those who identify a micro-niche, a subset of a subset, and dominate that conversation before expanding. For example, instead of starting as a general fitness marketer, successful beginners in 2026 are focusing on high-performance ergonomics for remote developers or post-rehabilitation strength training for amateur athletes. The specificity allows the AI-driven discovery engines to precisely target the users most likely to engage with your content. The second pillar, algorithmic literacy, is the most misunderstood aspect of modern marketing. Many people view the algorithm as a black box or an enemy to be cheated. In reality, the algorithm is a reflection of the audience. In 2026, these systems are so advanced that they can analyze the emotional sentiment of your video, the cadence of your speech, and the visual density of your frames to determine who should see it. We will go through the step-by-step process of optimizing your content for these sensors. This includes understanding latent semantic indexing in your captions and the use of high-contrast visual hooks that stop the scroll. We are going to look at technical data points like watch time retention curves and how even a 2% increase in mid-video retention can lead to a 300% increase in total reach. Finally, we have conversational conversion. The days of shouting at an audience and expecting them to buy are over. Modern consumers are highly skeptical of traditional advertising. In 2026, social media marketing is about facilitating a two-way dialogue. Potential outcomes for those who master this are significant. By shifting from a broadcast mindset to a community-building mindset, you create a feedback loop where your audience tells you exactly what they want to buy. We will explore how to use interactive elements, direct messaging strategies, and community-led growth to turn passive viewers into active advocates. This masterclass is not a collection of tips. It is an architectural blueprint. We are going to cover everything from the hardware and software requirements for 2026 content production to the advanced psychological triggers that drive social sharing. We will dive into the nuances of different platforms, explaining why your strategy for short-form video must differ fundamentally from your strategy for community-based forums or immersive 3D social spaces. You will learn how to automate the repetitive tasks of your marketing workflow using modern productivity stacks, allowing you to focus on the high-level creative strategy that truly moves the needle. We are starting with the most important question: why are you doing this? If your answer is simply to make money, you will likely fail. In the hyper-competitive environment of 2026, those who succeed are those who provide the most value. We will define value in three ways: information, entertainment, and transformation. Your marketing must do at least one of these, and ideally all three. Over the next 10 parts, we will show you how to manufacture value at scale. We will look at how the top agencies use data analytics to pivot their strategies in real time, and how you can replicate those processes on a bootstrap budget. This is the definitive guide to navigating the complex, high-stakes, and incredibly rewarding world of social media marketing in 2026. Prepare to unlearn everything you thought you knew about the internet. To truly unlearn the past, you must first understand the architectural shift of the 2026 digital economy. We are no longer living in a world of broad demographics. In the United States today, the concept of a general audience is functionally extinct. If you are starting your social media marketing journey by saying my product is for everyone between the ages of 18 and 65, you have already lost. The algorithms governing platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and the emerging decentralized social layers have become hyper-specialized. They do not look for broad appeal. They look for resonance within microclusters. Imagine a young entrepreneur in Austin named Marcus. Marcus wants to start a social media marketing agency focused on eco-friendly home goods. In 2023, Marcus would have targeted keywords like sustainable or home decor. In 2026, those terms are so saturated that his cost per acquisition would be unsustainable. Instead, Marcus must use a strategy we call multi-layered niche identification. He doesn't just target sustainable home goods. He targets urban apartment dwellers in high-density cities like New York or Chicago who practice indoor hydroponic gardening and follow a zero-waste lifestyle. By narrowing his focus to this hyper-specific intersection, the AI-driven discovery engines can categorize his content with 99% accuracy. This results in a higher click-through rate and a significantly lower bounce rate because every person who sees the content is a high-intent lead. Historical trends from the last 24 months show that the most successful entry-level marketers are those who master the art of the micro-category. Data suggests that accounts focusing on a niche with a total addressable audience of fewer than 500,000 people often see 3 times the engagement rate of accounts trying to reach 10 million. This is because, in 2026, depth of connection outweighs breadth of reach. When you speak to a very specific problem, you become an authority instantly. Step 1 of your 2026 journey is the audit of intent. You must ask yourself 3 specific questions before you ever post a single video or image. First, what is the specific cognitive itch I am scratching? Second, what is the unique data point or perspective I possess that an AI cannot hallucinate? Third, how does this content bridge the gap between a stranger's curiosity and a customer's loyalty? In the United States, consumer skepticism is at an all-time high. People can sense automated, soulless marketing from a mile away. To counter this, your niche must be backed by what we call radical authenticity. Let us look at a case study involving a small boutique fitness brand based in Seattle. In early 2025, they were struggling with a generic marketing strategy. They pivoted to a niche they identified through social listening: fitness for neurodivergent professionals who find traditional gym environments overstimulating. They tailored their entire content strategy to sensory-friendly workouts, lighting, and specialized coaching cues. Within 4 months, their organic reach within that specific community exploded. They did not need 1 million followers to become a 7-figure business. They needed 5,000 dedicated community members who felt seen and understood. This is the power of the 2026 niche. Once you have identified your microcategory, you must move into the phase of algorithmic synchronization. This is where most beginners fail because they treat the platform as a bucket to dump content into. In 2026, you must treat the platform as a collaborative partner. Every piece of content you upload is a data packet. The algorithm analyzes the first 3 seconds of your video frame by frame. It looks at the color grading, the facial expressions, and the semantic meaning of the words spoken. If your visual data does not match your niche's expectations, the system will categorize you incorrectly, and your content will die in the void of the non-interested feed. Consider the role of generative search optimization. In 2026, social media platforms have integrated conversational AI search. When a user asks their device, "Find me the best way to organize a small kitchen on a budget," the AI is not just looking for keywords. It is scanning video transcripts and community comments to find the most helpful answer. If your marketing content is structured as a series of high-value answers to specific questions, you are essentially pre-optimizing for the way people find information today. Let us break down a step-by-step framework for your first 30 days of niche dominance. During week 1, you are not creating, you are observing. You use social listening tools to identify the top 50 questions being asked within your microcategory. You look for the gaps where the current content is outdated or lacks a human touch. In week 2, you develop your signature visual language. In 2026, brand recognition happens through aesthetic consistency before a user even reads your name. This might be a specific camera angle, a recurring background element, or a unique pacing style. In week 3, you produce your first pillar of content. This is not a short-form clip. It is a deep-dive educational piece that establishes your expertise. In week 4, you atomize that pillar into 20 different micro-assets for different platforms. The potential outcomes for this structured approach are far superior to the spray and pray methods of the past. Historical data from 2025 marketing cohorts indicates that structured niche entry leads to a 60% higher retention rate of followers over the first 6 months. You are not looking for a viral hit that brings in 1 million uninterested viewers who leave the next day. You are looking for a steady build of high-value individuals. We must also discuss the shift in platform dynamics. In 2026, the dominant platforms in the United States have moved away from the social graph toward the interest graph. This means your followers are no longer your primary distribution channel. They are your social proof. Your primary distribution channel is the discovery feed. This changes the way you write hooks. You can no longer rely on your audience knowing who you are. Every single post must stand on its own as an entry point for a complete stranger. Imagine you are a social media manager for a new sustainable fashion brand in Los Angeles. If you post a video titled "Our new collection is out," the algorithm will likely show it to almost no one. However, if you post a video titled "Why 90% of recycled polyester is a scam," you have tapped into a high-stakes controversy within your niche. You have provided education, you have challenged the status quo, and you have invited engagement. That video serves as a magnet that pulls in the exact demographic interested in your brand's actual values. But identifying the niche and understanding the algorithm is only half the battle. There is a hidden layer to 2026 marketing that most people completely overlook. It is the layer that separates the hobbyists from the professionals, and it involves the way we handle data before the content is even filmed. If you don't understand the invisible triggers that make the AI choose your video over a competitor's, all the niche research in the world won't save you. As we move into the next phase of this masterclass, we have to look under the hood. We have identified where to play, but now we must learn how to win. There is a specific mathematical formula for the first 5 seconds of a video in 2026 that determines whether it will reach 10 people or 10 million. We are going to dive deep into the neuromarketing of the modern scroll, and why the most successful marketers are now hiring people specifically to engineer curiosity gaps. If you think you know how to write a headline, wait until you see the data on what actually triggers a click in the current landscape. The science of the click in 2026 is no longer about clickbait, it is about cognitive resonance. If you are still using 2024 style red circles and shocked face thumbnails, you are signaling to the audience that your content is low value and derivative. In the United States, we have reached a point of peak saturation where the average consumer sees over 5,000 marketing messages per day. Their brains have developed an elite-level filter. To bypass this filter, you must understand the reticular activating system, or the RAS. This is the part of the brain that decides what information is worth noticing. In 2026, the most effective social media marketers are those who engineer their hooks to trigger the RAS by presenting a pattern interrupt that suggests a high-value payoff. Imagine a specialized consultant in Denver named Sarah. Sarah is launching a social media campaign for a boutique HR tech firm. Most of her competitors are using headlines like 5 tips for better hiring. In 2026, that headline has a near zero click-through rate because it is generic and expected. Instead, Sarah uses a high-stakes pattern interrupt. Why your best employees are resigning after exactly 14 months. This headline works because it presents a specific, data-backed observation that creates an immediate curiosity gap. It implies that Sarah has access to information the viewer does not, and it addresses a high-stakes pain point for her target audience of business owners. Historical trends show that the most successful content in 2026 utilizes the narrative gap technique. This is where you provide the middle and end of a story, but withhold the beginning or the specific catalyst. For example, a case study from a major beverage brand showed that their highest performing ad of the year started with a shot of an empty warehouse and a voiceover saying, "This was the result of a single tweet." The viewer immediately wants to know what the tweet said and how it led to such a massive logistical outcome. This is the structural engineering of curiosity. To implement this in your own strategy, you must follow the rule of 3 seconds. In 2026, the first 3 seconds of your video are more important than the remaining 10 minutes. You must provide a visual hook, an auditory hook, and a conceptual hook simultaneously. A visual hook is a movement or a shift in the frame that prevents the eye from wandering. An auditory hook is a specific sound or a provocative opening statement. A conceptual hook is the promise of a transformation or a piece of rare information. If you miss one of these 3, your retention curve will likely drop by 50% before the 5-second mark. Let us analyze the step-by-step process of crafting a 2026 curiosity gap. Step 1 is the identification of the counterintuitive truth. What is something in your niche that everyone believes is true, but you can prove is actually false? Step 2 is the framing of the conflict. You must position your content as the solution to a conflict between the viewer's current reality and their desired outcome. Step 3 is the micro hook. This is a subtle visual or audio cue that changes every 1.5 seconds during the intro to keep the brain engaged. In the United States, we are seeing a massive shift toward what experts call kinetic typography and adaptive pacing. If your video maintains the same rhythm for more than 5 seconds, the viewer's brain will categorize it as background noise and they will scroll. To prevent this, you must vary your speech rate, use strategic silence, and ensure that your visual elements are constantly evolving. This is why the role of the video architect has become more valuable than the traditional video editor. The architect doesn't just cut clips, they manage the dopamine spikes of the viewer. Consider a case study from a high-growth fintech startup in 2025. They tested 2 different video intros for their social media campaign. Version A used a traditional professional greeting. "Hi, I am John, and today we are talking about savings." Version B started with a close-up of a shredded bank statement and the line, "Most people are losing 4% of their wealth to a fee they don't even know exists." Version B saw an 800% increase in total watch time. The potential outcomes for your brand are directly tied to your ability to lead with the stakes, not the introduction. We also have to discuss the role of the meta-commentary hook. In 2026, viewers are very self-aware. Sometimes the best hook is acknowledging the marketing itself. I have seen creators start videos by saying, "I spent $12,000 on this experiment so you don't have to." This builds immediate transparency and positions the creator as a surrogate for the viewer's curiosity. It tells the audience that the value of the video is higher than the time they will spend watching it. Data from late 2025 indicates that the most successful beginners in social media marketing are those who spend 70% of their creative energy on the first 10% of their content. This seems counterintuitive, but in an attention-starved economy, if you don't win the beginning, the end doesn't exist. We are seeing a trend where the top 1% of marketers produce 5 different versions of a video hook and test them on small audience segments before committing to a full rollout. Imagine if you could predict exactly when a viewer was going to drop off your video. In 2026, the analytics tools provided by major platforms allow you to do exactly that. You can see the specific frame where you lost the audience. Most beginners look at this data and feel discouraged. The professionals look at this data and see a roadmap. If you see a massive drop at the 7-second mark, it means your transition was too slow or your visual hook didn't match the verbal promise. Step by step, you should be auditing your content for friction points. A friction point is anything that gives the viewer an excuse to leave. This could be a long intro animation, a moment of dead air, or a complex explanation that isn't supported by visuals. In 2026, successful marketing is frictionless. It flows from one point to the next with such momentum that the viewer feels compelled to see it through to the end. This is often achieved through a technique called information layering, where you provide a simple narrative on the surface while tucking deeper, more complex value into the visual and auditory background. The United States market is also responding heavily to the concept of the unfiltered expert. People are moving away from overly polished, corporate-looking content and toward high-fidelity, but raw-feeling communication. This is because raw content suggests urgency and honesty. If you look like you are reading from a teleprompter in a sterile studio, you are less likely to build trust than if you are speaking with passion from a location that feels relevant to your niche. This is a subtle but powerful psychological hook that leverages the 2026 demand for authenticity. But even the most perfect hook will fail if your content doesn't deliver on its promise. This leads us to the structure of the deep value middle. Most people can get a click, but very few can keep the attention long enough to trigger a conversion. There is a specific way to stack your information so that every point leads naturally into the next, creating a slippery slide effect. If you can master the bridge between the hook and the body of your content, you will have a significant advantage over 99% of the people starting today. We have mastered the art of the opening, but what happens when the initial curiosity wears off? There is a structural secret to maintaining high retention that has nothing to do with what you say, and everything to do with the order in which you say it. In the next part, we are going to break down the content sequencing framework that ensures your viewers stay until the final second, and more importantly, what you must do at the halfway point to prevent the mid-video slump that kills most marketing campaigns. If you think you know how to tell a story, wait until you see the sequencing maps we are about to reveal. The content sequencing framework is the difference between a viewer who watches for 30 seconds and a viewer who becomes a lifelong advocate for your brand. In 2026, the mid-video slump is the primary silent killer of social media reach. Analytics across platforms like YouTube and Instagram show a consistent trend. Users tend to experience a fatigue point at approximately the 40% mark of any given piece of content. This is the moment where the initial dopamine hit from the hook has dissipated, and the brain begins to calculate the opportunity cost of staying versus scrolling. To combat this, professional marketers in the United States use a technique known as the information rehook. Imagine a specialized software developer in Chicago named David. David is marketing a new productivity tool for remote teams. He starts with a brilliant hook about the hidden costs of context switching, but by the 3-minute mark of his video, his retention graph begins to plummet. This happens because David is providing a linear progression of information. In 2026, linear is boring. To save his retention, David needs to implement a pattern break. A pattern break is a sudden shift in the delivery, such as moving from a talking headshot to a high-speed data visualization, or pivoting from a theoretical explanation to a high-stakes case study. Historical trends in 2026 indicate that the most successful deep dive content follows a nonlinear information stack. Instead of going from point A to point B, you go from point A to a shocking outcome, then backtrack to explain how that outcome was achieved. This is called the reverse-engineered narrative. By showing the result early in the middle section, you create a new curiosity gap that carries the viewer through the technical details. For example, a successful marketing campaign for a sustainable logistics company didn't just explain their new routing algorithm. They started the middle segment by showing a map of a city and stating that they reduced delivery times by 40% without adding a single vehicle. The middle of the video then became a quest for the viewer to understand the how. Step 1 of mastering your sequencing is the value density audit. Every 60 seconds of your content must contain at least one gold nugget, a piece of information so specific and useful that the viewer feels the need to write it down. If you have a 2-minute stretch where you are just providing context or fluff, your retention will die. In the United States, we call this the meat-to-bone ratio. You want as much meat as possible. If you are explaining social media marketing, don't just say engagement is important. Provide the specific mathematical formula for the 2026 engagement to reach ratio. Total interactions divided by unique impressions multiplied by a weighted factor for shares. Specificity builds perceived authority. Let us look at a case study of a lifestyle brand that launched in early 2026. They utilized a sequencing map called the Challenge Solution Escalation Loop. First, they presented a common problem, such as the difficulty of maintaining a work-life balance in a digital-first economy. Then they offered a standard solution. But here is the secret. They immediately followed that solution by explaining why it no longer works in the current year. This escalation creates a psychological tension that keeps the viewer locked in. It suggests that the standard advice is obsolete, and that only the creator has the updated solution. This loop can be repeated multiple times within a 10-minute video to maintain a high-tension retention curve. Another critical element of the 2026 sequencing map is the micro-win. You must give your viewer a small, actionable victory halfway through the content. If they feel they have already learned something valuable in the first 5 minutes, they are mathematically more likely to stay for the next 5. Imagine if you are teaching someone how to use AI-driven ad targeting. At the 5-minute mark, you show them one specific toggle in the settings that reduces accidental clicks from bot traffic by 30%. That is a micro-win. The viewer feels an immediate return on their investment of time, which builds the trust necessary to keep them watching through the more complex sections. The potential outcomes for those who master this sequencing are reflected in the way the 2026 algorithms reward session duration. Platforms are no longer just looking at whether a user watched your video, they are looking at what the user did afterward. If your sequencing is so effective that it keeps a user on the platform for an extended period, the algorithm will categorize your content as a high-value session starter. This triggers a secondary wave of distribution that can double or triple your organic reach. Step by step, you should build your script using the milestone method. Break your content into 3 distinct milestones. Milestone 1 is the revelation, where you flip a common belief on its head. Milestone 2 is the mechanism, where you explain the technical or strategic way the new reality works. Milestone 3 is the implementation, where you show the viewer exactly how to apply it to their specific situation. Between each milestone, you must place a bridge. A bridge is a transitional sentence that links the current value to an even higher value coming up next. For instance, you might say, now that you understand the mathematical formula for engagement, we need to look at the one thing that can override the math entirely: the psychological trigger of shared identity. In 2026, United States audiences are also highly sensitive to the concept of social proof integration. You should not save your testimonials or case studies for the end. Instead, sprinkle them throughout the middle of the content to validate each point as you make it. This creates a constant stream of credibility. If you are talking about the importance of community-led growth, show a 5-second clip of a community forum thriving under that model right then and there. This prevents the viewer from ever questioning your expertise. We also need to address the mid-video reset. This is a deliberate moment, usually around the 6-minute mark, where you acknowledge the depth of the topic. You might say, I know we are covering a lot of ground, but this next part is where the real transformation happens. This acts as a mental palate cleanser for the viewer. It gives them a second to breathe before you dive into the most complex and valuable part of the masterclass. Imagine if your content was structured like a high-stakes thriller movie. In a thriller, the tension doesn't just go up, it fluctuates. You have moments of high action followed by moments of intense dialogue. Your social media marketing content should follow the same rhythm. Use fast-paced, high-energy segments for your revelations and slower, more deliberate pacing for your technical explanations. This variation in cadence prevents the brain from entering a hypnotic state where it stops processing information. As we look toward the final sections of a perfect content piece, we have to talk about the transition from education to action. Most marketers fail here because they become too pushy or too vague. There is a precise way to pivot your sequencing so that the viewer feels that the natural next step is to engage with your brand. But before we get to the conversion, we have to master the most difficult part of the 2026 landscape: the invisible architecture of trust. You can have the best sequencing in the world, but if your brand lacks the 3 specific trust signals that the 2026 consumer demands, they will never move from viewer to customer. The next part of our masterclass will pull back the curtain on these trust signals. We are going to explore how to bake credibility into your content without sounding like a salesperson, and why the most successful brands in 2026 are actually leaning into their flaws to build a more resilient connection with their audience. If you want to know why some creators with 10,000 followers out-earn those with 1 million, the answer lies in the trust architecture we are about to deconstruct. The 2026 trust architecture is built on a foundation that would have terrified marketers a decade ago. It is built on the strategic use of friction, vulnerability, and the death of the polished persona. In the United States, we are currently navigating what sociologists call the authenticity crisis. As generative media becomes indistinguishable from reality, the average consumer has developed a biological defense mechanism against anything that feels too perfect. If your social media marketing looks like a high-budget commercial, the brain of a 2026 viewer flags it as a deepfake or a corporate manipulation. To build trust today, you must implement the 3 pillars of modern credibility: radical transparency, proof of work, and the flaw integration strategy. Imagine a specialized career coach in Nashville named Chloe. Chloe is marketing her services to executive leadership in the tech sector. In the old world of marketing, Chloe would have posted photos in a rented private jet or a sterile office with a suit and a forced smile. In 2026, Chloe builds more trust by filming a video in her actual home office, showing the mess of sticky notes on her wall, and admitting that she struggled with a specific leadership challenge just last week. This is not about being unprofessional, it is about being human. By showing the process, the messy middle, Chloe provides what we call proof of human agency. Historical trends suggest that content containing behind-the-scenes struggles sees a 45% higher conversion rate than content that only shows the finished, successful result. The first pillar, radical transparency, is about opening the hood of your business. In 2026, the United States public wants to know how the sausage is made. If you are a beginner starting an agency, don't hide the fact that you are a beginner. Instead, market your hunger and your specific, up-to-date knowledge of 2026 tools. A case study from a boutique skincare brand in Portland showed that they increased their customer lifetime value by 30% simply by publishing a weekly data report on their ingredient sourcing and the exact profit margins they made on each product. By being transparent about their business model, they removed the skepticism that usually haunts a new brand. They didn't just ask for trust, they earned it through verifiable data. The second pillar is proof of work. In a world where AI can generate a 1,000-word blog post in 3 seconds, the value of the final product has plummeted. What has increased in value is the documentation of the effort. This is why the most successful social media marketers in 2026 use a technique called live documentation. Instead of just announcing a new project, they document the 80 hours of research, the failed prototypes, and the late-night pivots. This creates a psychological bond with the audience. They are no longer just consumers. They are witnesses to your journey. This leads to a potential outcome where your audience feels a sense of shared ownership in your success. They don't just buy from you, they cheer for you. The third pillar, the flaw integration strategy, is perhaps the most counterintuitive. It involves deliberately highlighting a limitation of your product or service. If you are marketing a social media management tool that doesn't have a specific feature, say it up front. Tell the audience this tool is not for people who need automated video editing, but it is the best in the world for data visualization. In the United States, this level of honesty is so rare that it acts as a massive credibility signal. It tells the viewer that you care more about their success than their money. Once you have admitted a flaw, the audience is far more likely to believe the positive claims you make afterward. Step by step, you can audit your current brand for trust signals by looking at your social proof stack. In 2026, a written testimonial is worth almost nothing. Anyone can fabricate a quote and put a stock photo next to it. To build actual trust, you need video-verifiable social proof. This involves high-quality, authentic video interviews with clients where they discuss the specific problem they had before finding you. We are seeing a shift toward peer-to-peer validation, where your customers talk to each other in your comment sections or community hubs. Your role as a marketer in 2026 is to facilitate these conversations, not to control them. Let us look at a scenario involving a freelance graphic designer in Miami named Leo. Leo is trying to land high-ticket social media clients. Instead of a portfolio, Leo creates a series called The Anatomy of a Rebrand. In each episode, he takes a struggling brand and spends 10 minutes explaining the psychological why behind every color choice and font weight. He shows the data on how his designs increase the client's click-through rate by 12%. He is not just showing his work, he is teaching his expertise. By the time a potential client reaches out to Leo, the trust is already established. They aren't wondering if he is good, they are wondering if they can afford him. Data from late 2025 marketing surveys indicates that trust is now a nonlinear commodity. It takes an average of 22 touchpoints across multiple platforms before a consumer in the United States feels comfortable making a purchase from a new brand. This is why your social media marketing must be an ecosystem, not a silo. Your TikTok content builds the initial curiosity, your YouTube content builds the deep dive authority, and your community platform, whether it is a Discord, a newsletter, or a private forum, builds the long-term relationship. Imagine if you could bypass those 22 touchpoints by leveraging the trust of someone else. In 2026, we call this authority by association. This isn't just about influencer marketing. It is about collaborative credibility. By interviewing established experts in your niche or co-creating content with recognized authorities, you inherit a portion of their trust. This is a highly effective strategy for beginners. If you are starting a marketing agency, don't just talk about yourself. Feature interviews with the developers who built the tools you use. This positions you as an insider within the industry, which is a powerful trust signal. However, there is a dark side to trust in 2026. Because it is so valuable, it is also incredibly fragile. One instance of perceived dishonesty, using an undisclosed AI spokesperson without a disclaimer or faking an engagement metric, can lead to a permanent blacklisting by the platform's community. The United States market is particularly unforgiving of what we call authenticity grifting. To avoid this, you must have a clear ethics manifesto for your brand. Tell your audience exactly what your values are, how you use AI, and how you protect their data. This isn't just a legal requirement, it is a competitive advantage. As we move forward, we have to recognize that trust is only the gatekeeper. Once you have earned the right to be heard, you have to know what to say to move the needle. You have the niche, you have the sequencing, and you have the trust architecture. Now we must look at the actual engine of growth, the 2026 multi-platform distribution strategy. Many beginners make the mistake of creating content for a single platform, but in the current landscape, that is like trying to heat a house with a single candle. There is a specific way to repurpose a single idea into a global presence without burning out or looking like a spammer. In the next part, we are going to dive into the atomization method, the exact process used by top-tier agencies to turn 1 hour of recording into a month's worth of high-performing content across 5 different platforms. If you have ever felt like there aren't enough hours in the day to be a content creator, you are about to see how the professionals use the 2026 leverage framework to scale their output by 10 times without working an extra minute. The 2026 atomization method is the secret weapon of the modern digital architect. In the United States today, if you are creating content for just one platform, you are essentially leaving 80% of your potential reach on the table. However, the old way of repurposing, simply cutting a long video into short clips and posting them everywhere, is now identified by algorithms as low-effort spam. In 2026, every platform has its own unique cultural language and metadata requirements. To scale without burning out, you must master the art of contextual transformation. This is the process of taking one core pillar of information and re-encoding it, so that it feels native to every environment it enters. Imagine an interior design consultant in Phoenix named Elena. Elena spent 4 hours researching and filming a deep dive masterclass on the psychology of lighting in small spaces. Instead of just uploading it to YouTube and walking away, Elena applies the 2026 leverage framework. She identifies 3 high-impact insights from her video. Insight 1 becomes a high-tempo, 30-second vertical video for TikTok with a text overlay hook designed for the discovery feed. Insight 2 is transformed into a carousel for Instagram that focuses on visual side-by-side comparisons of lighting temperatures. Insight 3 is rewritten into a long-form thought leadership post for LinkedIn, focusing on how lighting affects workplace productivity. Because she started with a high-quality pillar, the heavy lifting of research and ideation is already done. She is not creating new content. She is distributing a single vision through multiple lenses. Historical trends show that this approach creates a multi-touchpoint ecosystem. Data from 2025 indicates that a user is 5 times more likely to convert if they see your brand in 3 different formats over a 48-hour period. In the United States, we call this the omnipresence effect. When a potential client sees you on their morning scroll through X, watches your video on their lunch break, and reads your newsletter in the evening, you occupy a dominant share of their mental real estate. This is how a beginner with a small team can compete with a multi-million-dollar corporation. You aren't outspending them. You are outmaneuvering them through strategic atomization. Step 1 of the atomization method is the pillar creation. Your pillar must be a piece of content that is at least 10 to 20 minutes long and contains dense, high-value information. This is your source of truth. In 2026, the most effective pillars are educational masterclasses or live-recorded workshops. Step by step, you then perform a content extraction. You are looking for the high dopamine moments. These are the seconds where you made a bold claim, shared a surprising statistic, or solved a specific pain point. These moments are the seeds for your short-form content. Let us look at a case study from a specialized pet nutrition brand in Austin. They started with one 60-minute webinar about feline kidney health. Using a 2026 AI-assisted transcription and clipping tool, they extracted 15 microvideos, wrote 5 educational blog posts from the transcript, and created 20 static images featuring key data points. Over 30 days, they released these assets across 6 platforms. The potential outcomes were staggering. They reached 4 million unique viewers from a single hour of original recording. Their cost per lead dropped by 65% because they were leveraging the same initial investment of time across a massive audience base. However, atomization is not just about quantity, it is about platform-native optimization. In 2026, the TikTok algorithm prioritizes raw, high-energy movement. The YouTube algorithm prioritizes total session time and click-through rate. The LinkedIn algorithm prioritizes dwell time and professional discourse. If you post a YouTube-style intro on TikTok, the audience will scroll before you finish your first sentence. You must rehook every single asset. Imagine taking your main video's conclusion and making it the start of your short-form clip. This is called the flip start technique. It gives the viewer the payoff immediately, which earns you the right to explain the context afterward. For the United States market, you must also consider the role of interactive distribution. In 2026, social media is moving toward community-owned layers. This means that part of your atomization strategy must include assets designed for engagement, not just consumption. This includes polls, interactive sliders, and community questions that stem from your pillar content. If your main video discusses the future of remote work, your atomized post on a platform like Threads should be a specific, controversial question about office mandates that sparks a discussion. The algorithm sees this discussion and pushes your content to more people, effectively using your audience as a distribution engine. A critical step-by-step component of this framework is the metadata synchronization. In 2026, every platform uses advanced semantic search. This means your captions, your alt text, and even the file names of your uploads must be optimized with the keywords and topics identified in your niche research. If you are talking about sustainable fashion, every atomized clip should have metadata that points back to that core topic. This creates a semantic web around your brand, making it nearly impossible for the AI-driven search engines to ignore you when a user queries that topic. Imagine if you could automate the entire distribution process. While AI tools in 2026 can help with the heavy lifting of clipping and captioning, the human element remains the final filter. You must review every atomized piece to ensure the tone remains consistent. A common mistake for beginners is letting an AI tool choose the clips. This often results in clips that lack the emotional nuance required to build trust. The professional approach is to use AI to generate the options, but then use your human intuition to select the one that best represents your brand's voice. This is the synthesis of efficiency and authenticity. Let us analyze the impact of the 2026 attention decay curve. Because information moves so fast in the United States, a piece of content that is relevant today might be obsolete in 2 weeks. Atomization allows you to flood the zone while the topic is still hot. Instead of waiting a week to produce 5 different videos, you produce one pillar and deploy 20 assets in 48 hours. This allows you to capture the peak of the trend cycle. We have seen historical instances where this rapid-fire distribution led to a brand becoming the definitive authority on a breaking news event in their niche within hours. Potential outcomes for beginners who implement this are often misinterpreted as overnight success. In reality, it is the result of compounded visibility. Every atomized clip is a lottery ticket. The more you have in the system, the higher your probability of hitting the algorithmic jackpot. But unlike a literal lottery, you are rigging the game in your favor by ensuring every ticket is of high quality. We are moving toward a reality where the most successful marketers are not the best shooters, but those who can fire the most high-accuracy shots in the shortest amount of time. This brings us to a fundamental question. Once you have the attention of millions through atomized distribution, what do you do with it? Many beginners get the reach but fail to build the infrastructure to hold that attention. They have the traffic, but they don't have the community. In 2026, traffic is a commodity, but community is an asset. There is a specific transition you must make from being a content creator to being a community architect. In the next part of this masterclass, we are going to explore the community-centric growth model. We will discuss why the likes and follows of 2026 are secondary to the depth of your private circles. We are going to break down the exact steps to move your audience from the public square into your private ecosystem, where the real value is exchanged. If you have ever wondered how to turn a viral moment into a sustainable business, the answer lies in the community funnel we are about to unveil. There is one specific mistake beginners make during this transition that causes 90% of their audience to disappear, and we are going to show you exactly how to avoid it. The mistake that kills 90% of beginner marketing campaigns in 2026 is treating your audience like a database instead of a neighborhood. In the United States, we have entered the era of the private social layer. Historical trends from 2024 and 2025 show that users are retreating from public comment sections into gated communities, encrypted messaging groups, and specialized forum layers. If your strategy is only to post publicly and hope for a transaction, you are missing the engine room of modern social media marketing. In 2026, the public feed is for discovery, but the private community is for conversion and retention. This is where the community-centric growth model comes into play, and it requires a complete shift in how you view a follower. Imagine an independent architectural photographer in Seattle named Julian. Julian has built a massive following on visual platforms by showing off the sleek, minimalist high-rises of the Pacific Northwest. In 2023, Julian would have just posted a link to his print shop in his bio and hoped for the best. In 2026, Julian knows that the algorithm is a fickle landlord. He could be shadow banned or deprioritized tomorrow. To protect his business, Julian creates a private digital sanctuary, a Discord or a specialized community app, specifically for aspiring architectural photographers and high-end real estate developers. He doesn't just invite them there to sell to them, he invites them there to co-create. He hosts weekly critiques, shares his raw camera settings that he doesn't post publicly, and facilitates networking between his followers. This is the difference between having an audience and having an ecosystem. When Julian releases a new masterclass or a physical book, he doesn't need to fight the algorithm for reach. He has a direct line to a high-intent group of people who already trust his expertise. The first step in the community-centric growth model is the value bridge. You must give people a reason to leave the convenience of their primary social feed to join your private circle. In 2026, a newsletter sign-up is no longer enough. People are suffering from inbox fatigue. You need to offer a utility-based incentive. This could be access to a proprietary database, a specialized AI tool you have configured for your niche, or a high-level networking opportunity. For a social media marketer, this might mean a private channel where you share real-time algorithmic shifts as they happen. You are offering a competitive advantage that can only be found inside your gates. Historical data indicates that the potential outcomes for community-first brands are significantly more stable than those reliant on viral hits. A case study from a mid-sized educational technology company in Boston revealed that while their public reach fluctuated by as much as 80% month-over-month due to platform updates, their community-driven revenue remained within a 5% variance. This is because a community creates its own gravity. The members start talking to each other, creating a reason to return that doesn't depend on you, the creator, producing a new piece of content every day. Step by step, you must build what we call the ladder of engagement. At the bottom rung, you have the anonymous viewer who finds you through an atomized clip. The next rung is the follower. The third rung is the community member, someone who has crossed the threshold into your private space. The fourth rung is the contributor, someone who actively participates in discussions. The final rung is the advocate, someone who markets your brand for you. Your job as a marketer in 2026 is to design the friction-free path that moves people up this ladder. This involves using social listening to identify your most active commenters and personally inviting them into the inner circle. In the United States, this high-touch approach is extremely effective because it provides a level of human connection that is increasingly rare in an AI-dominated landscape. Let us look at the role of the micro-community. In 2026, big is often viewed as low quality. The most influential social media marketing is happening in small, highly curated groups of 500 to 5,000 people. These groups have a much higher signal-to-noise ratio. If you are starting out, don't be discouraged by a small community. A group of 200 highly engaged professionals is worth more than 100,000 passive scrollers. We see this in the rise of the specialized consultant. A marketing consultant in New York might run a private Telegram group for 25 high-growth startup founders. The information shared there is so exclusive and timely that the members would never dream of leaving. That is the ultimate goal, becoming indispensable to a specific group of people. Potential outcomes of this strategy include a massive reduction in your marketing budget. When you have a dedicated community, your customer acquisition cost eventually trends toward zero, because your existing members bring in new members through word of mouth. This is the social compound interest effect. However, maintaining this requires a specific type of leadership. In 2026, you are not a boss. You are a facilitator. You must set the culture, moderate the discourse, and ensure that the value remains high. This means you have to be willing to remove members who are toxic or low value. A healthy community is defined as much by who is not there as by who is. Imagine if your marketing could run itself while you sleep. By empowering community moderators and rewarding top contributors with exclusive perks or early access to your products, you create a self-sustaining engine. We see this with decentralized brands in 2026, where the community actually votes on the next product launch or the direction of the marketing campaign. This level of involvement creates a psychological lock-in that traditional advertising cannot touch. But there is a technical side to this that we cannot ignore. To manage these communities effectively in 2026, you must be proficient with the latest community operating systems. These are platforms that integrate your content, your payments, and your member communication into a single interface. We will be looking at how to set these up so they automate the boring parts of management like billing and onboarding, allowing you to focus on the human interactions. The shift to community also changes your content strategy. Instead of creating content that is a lecture, you start creating content that is a conversation starter. Every post should end with a bridge to the community. You might say, I am hosting a live breakdown of these stats inside our private group at 4 p.m. this Thursday. This creates a sense of FOMO, fear of missing out, that is rooted in real, tangible value. As we look at the evolution of this masterclass, we have to recognize that a community is only as strong as its ability to generate results. You have the niche, the trust, the distribution, and now the community. But how do you measure if any of this is actually working? In the old days, you looked at likes. In 2026, those are considered ghost metrics. They look good, but they have no substance. There is a new set of KPIs, key performance indicators, that the top 1% of marketers use to track their real impact. In the next part, we are going to dive into the 2026 analytics revolution. We are going to show you the specific data points that actually matter for your bottom line and how to use predictive analytics to anticipate a platform shift before it happens. If you have been staring at your dashboard wondering which numbers are actually helping you grow, you are about to get the clarity you have been looking for. We are going to break down the formula for the high-value action rate and why it is the only metric you should care about this year. The high-value action rate, or HVAR, is the only metric that separates the professional marketers from the hobbyists in 2026. If you are still obsessing over follower counts or general impressions, you are living in a digital ghost town. In the United States, we have reached a state of total metric inflation. Because AI bots can now mimic human engagement patterns with 95% accuracy, a like or a view no longer represents a true human connection. To scale a business today, you must ignore the surface-level vanity and look at the actual movement of human intent. The HVAR measures the percentage of your total audience that takes a non-trivial, high-friction action after consuming your content. This includes things like joining a private community, downloading a specialized tool, or participating in a live Q&A. Imagine a specialized sustainable landscape architect in Phoenix named Maya. Maya has 10,000 followers on Instagram, but her HVAR is an incredible 8%. Meanwhile, her competitor has 500,000 followers, but an HVAR of only 0.1%. In 2026, Maya is the more successful marketer. Why? Because when Maya posts a deep dive breakdown of xeriscaping techniques, 800 people take a specific action that signals high intent. Her competitor, despite the massive reach, only moves 500 people, and most of those are low-intent clicks. Maya's business is more resilient because she is optimizing for depth, not breadth. Historical trends from the last 18 months indicate that platforms are beginning to reward HVAR over raw volume. If the algorithm sees that your content consistently moves people to a secondary high-value destination, it classifies you as an authority node and increases your quality score. To calculate your HVAR, you must look at your total reach versus your core conversions. A core conversion is not a sale, it is a step right before the sale. Step by step, you should be tracking the following data points. First, the save-to-reach ratio. In 2026, a save is worth 10 times more than a like, because it indicates that the information was valuable enough to be revisited. Second, look at your DM initiation rate. This is the percentage of viewers who reach out with a specific, non-automated question. Third, track your external link click-through from stories and bios. When you combine these, you get a clear picture of your brand's actual gravity. If your HVAR is below 1%, your content is likely too generic or lacks a clear call to value. Let us look at a case study from a boutique educational firm in Chicago. They were struggling with high reach but low sales in early 2025. They pivoted their analytics focus to the high-value action rate by introducing a gated resource, a proprietary spreadsheet for tax-efficient business structuring, at the midpoint of their videos. By tracking how many people actually went through the friction of entering an email to get that specific tool, they identified which content topics were actually driving business value. They found that their most viral videos had the lowest HVAR, while their niche technical videos had the highest. By doubling down on the technical content, they tripled their revenue even though their total view count decreased by 40%. This is the power of data-driven discipline. In 2026, the United States market is also utilizing sentiment-weighted analytics. This is a level of data analysis where AI tools scan the comments on your posts not just for keywords, but for the complexity of the discourse. A comment that says "great video" is weighted as 0. A comment that asks a nuanced question about page 4 of your report is weighted as a high-value signal. If your comment sections are full of short, generic praise, you are likely being served to the wrong audience or your content is too surface level. You want to see debates, long-form feedback, and peer-to-peer tagging. This is the hallmark of a healthy digital ecosystem. Step by step, you need to implement a tracking architecture. You cannot rely on the basic dashboards provided by the platforms themselves. You should be using UTM parameters for every link you share to see exactly which piece of content, which platform, and even which specific time of day is producing the highest HVAR. Imagine if you discovered that your Tuesday morning TikToks produce more community signups than your Friday night YouTube videos, even if the YouTube videos got more views. That insight allows you to reallocate your creative energy where it actually produces a return on investment. Potential outcomes for those who master these 2026 analytics include a level of predictability that was previously impossible in social media marketing. When you know your HVAR, you can work backward to determine your growth. If you know that for every 1,000 views you get 10 high-value actions, and for every 10 actions you get 1 client, your marketing becomes a simple math problem rather than a guessing game. This is how the top 1% of agencies in the United States operate. They don't hope to go viral. They build systems that produce consistent, measurable intent. Consider the role of predictive algorithmic mapping. In 2026, the most advanced marketers are using data to predict when an algorithm is about to shift. By monitoring the reach of different content formats across a control group of accounts, you can see if a platform is starting to favor long-form over short-form or images over video. If you see a consistent 10% drop in video reach across the board, it is a signal to pivot your strategy before the rest of the market catches on. This is called front-running the algorithm. It requires a high level of data literacy, but it is the only way to maintain a competitive edge in a hyperactive market. Imagine if you could see the exact moment a viewer decided to trust you. In 2026, we use heat map retention analysis to see not just when people leave a video, but when they stop and rewatch a specific section. Rewatches are the ultimate trust signal. If people are pausing and rewinding to hear a specific point, that point is a gold mine. It should be extracted and turned into its own atomized piece of content. This is data-led content creation. You are letting the audience's behavior dictate your future production schedule. As we move toward the final stages of this masterclass, we have to address the elephant in the room. You can have the best data, the best niche, and the best community, but if you don't know how to turn that attention into actual revenue without being a pushy salesperson, you will eventually run out of resources. There is a specific psychological bridge between being a trusted educator and being a business owner. In 2026, the hard sell is dead. It has been replaced by something much more subtle and effective. In the next part, we are going to dive into the frictionless world of modern conversion. We are going to show you how to structure your offers so they feel like the natural conclusion to the value you have already provided. We will explore the invisible funnel and why the most successful sales in 2026 happen before the customer even sees a price tag. If you have ever felt uncomfortable asking for money or felt like your marketing isn't leading to actual business growth, the next part will change your entire perspective on the relationship between content and commerce. We are going to break down the exact sequence of the soft close and why it is the most powerful tool in your 2026 marketing kit. The soft close is the final evolution of the sales process in 2026. In the United States, we have reached a state of total advertising fatigue. The high-pressure, scarcity-driven sales tactics of the early 2020s are now actively filtered out by the consumer brain. If you attempt to use a countdown timer or a limited-time offer that feels artificial, you are not just losing a sale, you are burning a bridge with your entire community. The soft close works because it is rooted in the psychological principle of logical progression. It assumes that if the value provided in the previous 8 parts of your funnel was sufficient, the purchase is not a leap of faith but the next logical step in the user's journey. Imagine a specialized supply chain consultant in Chicago named Robert. Robert has spent months creating deep-dive content on how to optimize mid-sized logistics operations using 2026 AI automation. He doesn't end his videos with a loud pitch to buy his consulting package. Instead, he uses the invisible funnel. At the end of a high-value explanation, Robert says, "For those who want to see exactly how these datasets look in a live environment, I have uploaded the raw templates we used for the Nashville project into the Resource Hub. If you find that these templates solve your immediate bottleneck, but you need a custom implementation for a larger fleet, our team handles 3 of those integrations per month. You can check the current availability in the dashboard." This is a soft close. It provides immediate value, establishes clear boundaries, and positions the service as a solution to a problem that Robert has already proven he can solve. Historical trends show that this approach leads to a significantly higher customer lifetime value. When a customer feels like they were the one who made the decision to buy, rather than being sold to, their loyalty to the brand increases by over 60%. In 2026, we call this the zero-friction conversion. To implement this, you must master the 3 stages of the soft close: the value extension, the boundary statement, and the seamless transition. The value extension is where you offer a piece of the solution for free. In the United States, the 2026 market expects a try-before-you-buy experience. This might be a free audit, a light version of your software, or a foundational module of your course. By giving away the what and the why, you are positioning your paid offer as the how. Step by step, you should analyze your content to find the natural point of exhaustion, the moment where the viewer says, "I understand the theory, but I don't have the time or the specialized skill to do the work myself." That is where your offer begins. The boundary statement is a critical trust signal in 2026. It involves telling the audience who your product is not for. By creating exclusivity based on fit rather than price, you increase the perceived value for the right customer. A case study from a specialized legal tech firm in New York showed that by explicitly stating their software was only for firms with more than 50 employees, they actually saw an increase in inquiries from smaller firms trying to scale up to meet the requirement. Potential outcomes of a well-placed boundary statement include a much higher lead quality and a massive reduction in customer support tickets from frustrated, ill-fitted users. The seamless transition is the technical execution of the move from content to commerce. In 2026, if a user has to click more than twice to reach a checkout or a booking page, you will lose 70% of them. We use what are called embedded conversion points. These are interactive elements within the video or the social post itself that allow a user to signal intent without leaving the experience. This might be a poll that triggers an automated DM with more information or a voice-activated command for users on mobile devices. The goal is to make the transition feel like a continuation of the conversation. Let us look at a scenario involving a social media marketing freelancer in Miami named Sophia. Sophia specialized in the luxury real estate niche. Instead of a standard sales page, Sophia created an interactive audit. After watching her 10-minute video on 2026 property visualization, viewers could click a link to a simple 5-question diagnostic tool. Based on their answers, the tool provided a custom 3-page report. At the end of that report, Sophia offered a 15-minute strategy call to discuss the findings. The report was so valuable on its own that the strategy call didn't feel like a pitch. It felt like a professional consultation. Sophia's conversion rate from report viewers to high-ticket clients was nearly 12%, which is quadruple the industry average for cold traffic. In the United States, the 2026 consumer also highly values the concept of the milestone reward. To keep people moving through your funnel, you should offer rewards for engagement. For example, if someone watches 4 of your videos in a row, the platform's integrated loyalty system could unlock a special discount or an exclusive piece of content. This gamification of the sales process turns the journey into a reward in itself. Historical data indicates that users who interact with a brand's loyalty ecosystem are 3 times more likely to make a repeat purchase within the first year. Step by step, you should be building your 2026 conversion map by identifying your high-intent trigger points. These are specific moments in your content where a user's interest is at its peak. Usually, this is immediately after a revelation or a micro-win. You must place your soft close at these points. If you wait until the very end of a long video when the retention is at its lowest, you are only speaking to the 5% of people who are already going to buy. By placing a soft close at the 3-minute mark, the 7-minute mark, and the 10-minute mark, you capture the intent of the different user segments. However, even the most perfect conversion map will fail if you do not have a robust system for post-purchase advocacy. In 2026, the sale is not the end. It is the beginning of the most important marketing phase. Your customers are your most valuable content creators. We will explore how to incentivize them to share their results, creating a loop of social proof that feeds back into the top of your funnel. This is the secret to exponential growth. When one customer brings in 2 more, and those 2 bring in 4, you have achieved the holy grail of social media marketing, the self-scaling system. Imagine if your brand was so well integrated into your customers' lives that they felt a personal responsibility for your success. This is the level of connection that the 2026 Masterclass has been building toward. We have covered the niche, the algorithm, the trust, the community, and the conversion. But there is one final piece of the puzzle that ensures all of this remains sustainable over the long term. The digital landscape of 2026 is fast, but it is also volatile. To survive, you must know how to future-proof your brand against the next wave of technological disruption. As we move into the final part of this masterclass, we are going to look at the 2027 and 2028 projections. We are going to discuss the impending shift towards spatial social media, and how the foundations you are building today will translate into a world where the screen might disappear entirely. We are going to talk about the concept of the sovereign marketer and why owning your data is the only way to ensure your business exists 5 years from now. If you think 2026 is a wild ride, you haven't seen anything yet. The final part of this series will give you the long-term vision you need to not just start, but to dominate your industry for the next decade. To understand the future of social media marketing, we must first accept that the screen as we know it is becoming a secondary interface. In the United States, as we move through 2026, we are entering the era of spatial, social, and ambient marketing. This is the stage where the digital and physical worlds finally merge through high-fidelity augmented reality and persistent digital layers over physical locations. Historical trends from the early 2020s showed the rise of the creator economy, but the late 2020s are defined by the sovereign marketer. A sovereign marketer is someone who does not just rent space on a platform, but owns the direct connection to their audience through decentralized protocols and private data vaults. If you want to survive the next decade, you must transition from being a content creator to being an infrastructure builder. Imagine a specialized architectural designer in Boston named Thomas. Thomas has followed every step of this masterclass. He has a niche, he has an atomized distribution strategy, and he has a thriving community. But in late 2026, a major platform suddenly changes its terms of service, claiming ownership over all user-generated content for its own internal AI training without compensation. Because Thomas is a sovereign marketer, this does not destroy him. He has already moved his core community onto a decentralized social protocol where his followers own their own data, and he owns his own distribution list. He uses the public platforms as a top-of-funnel discovery engine, but his business logic, his customer relationships, and his intellectual property sit on a layer that he controls. This is the ultimate form of future-proofing. The first pillar of long-term dominance is data sovereignty. In 2026, the most valuable asset you have is not your follower count. It is your zero-party data. This is information that your audience intentionally and proactively shares with you. Step by step, you should be moving your audience from the anonymous algorithmic feed into a system where you have a direct, non-intermediated way to reach them. Whether this is a legacy email list, a decentralized social handle, or a private community app, the goal is the same. Eliminate the middleman. Case studies of brands that were deplatformed in 2025 show that those with a robust zero-party data strategy recovered their revenue within 30 days, while those who relied solely on platform reach often went out of business entirely. The second pillar is the transition to spatial content. By 2027, the United States market will see a massive uptick in wearable AR devices. Your social media marketing will no longer be limited to a vertical rectangle. It will be immersive. Imagine if a potential customer could walk into a physical space and see your digital tips floating in the air through their glasses. Or imagine if your product demonstrations were three-dimensional models that users could place on their own desks. To prepare for this, you must start thinking in 3 dimensions today. This means investing in 3D scanning technology and understanding spatial audio. The potential outcomes for early adopters of spatial marketing include becoming the definitive brand in a landscape that has almost no competition. We are seeing historical parallels to the early days of mobile apps in 2008. The window of opportunity is narrow, but the rewards for those who enter early are immense. The third pillar is AI-human hybridization. In 2026, we have moved past the fear of AI replacing marketers. The reality is that AI is a force multiplier. However, as AI content becomes more common, the value of human-exclusive traits, like empathy, lived experience, and moral judgment skyrockets. Your long-term strategy must involve using AI to handle 80% of your production, distribution, and data analysis, while you personally handle the 20% that requires a soul. We call this the human-in-the-loop framework. If you automate your personality, you become a commodity. If you use AI to free up your time so you can be more human with your community, you become a leader. Let us look at a case study of a financial literacy brand for Gen Z, based in Atlanta. In 2025, they were overwhelmed by the need to create content for 12 different platforms. They implemented an AI agent system that monitored their community discussions and automatically generated draft responses and content ideas based on the specific questions being asked. This allowed the founder to spend 4 hours a day actually talking to her students instead of editing videos. Within a year, their trust metrics were the highest in the industry. They didn't use AI to distance themselves from the audience. They used AI to get closer to them. This is the correct application of technology in the late 2020s. Potential outcomes for the next 5 years also include the rise of hyper-personalized content streams. In 2026, the idea of a one-to-many broadcast is fading. Advanced algorithms now allow you to serve different versions of the same video to different people based on their specific needs. If a viewer is a beginner, they see the foundational version. If they are an expert, they see the technical deep dive. This is called dynamic content assembly. As a marketer, your job will be to create the building blocks of content, and the AI will assemble them in real time for each individual viewer. This sounds complex, but it is already beginning to happen on platforms like YouTube and Netflix. By structuring your content into modular pieces now, you are positioning yourself for this shift. Step by step, you should be auditing your brand for intellectual property resilience. In a world of generative AI, your ideas are your currency. You must protect your unique frameworks, your proprietary data, and your specific brand voice. We are seeing a trend in the United States where marketers are using digital watermarking and blockchain-based timestamps to prove the provenance of their original work. This isn't just about legal protection. It is about brand authority. When you can prove you were the first to identify a trend or solve a problem, you earn a level of respect that a copycat cannot replicate. Imagine if your brand was not just a source of information but a platform of its own. In 2027, we expect to see more social media marketers launching their own micro SaaS products or specialized AI agents as part of their community offering. Your content teaches the user, but your tool helps them do the work. This creates a powerful ecosystem where the content markets the tool, and the tool provides the data that informs the next piece of content. This is the closed-loop business model of the future. As we conclude this 10-part masterclass, you must realize that starting social media marketing in 2026 is about more than just posting videos. It is about understanding the intersection of human psychology, technological evolution, and data ownership. You have the tools. You have the framework. You have the niche, the sequencing, the trust architecture, the atomization method, the community funnel, and the analytics. The only thing left is the execution. The United States market is brutal to the stagnant, but incredibly rewarding to the agile. But there is one final hidden layer to this entire system. We have talked about how to build a business, but we haven't talked about how to sustain the creator behind the business. The burnout rate in 2026 is at an all-time high because the pace of change is so fast. To truly dominate the next decade, you need a mental and operational system that allows you to stay in the game without losing your mind. There is a specific way to structure your work-life harmony as a digital entrepreneur that most people get completely wrong. In our upcoming bonus series, we are going to dive into the high-performance creator stack. We will look at the exact daily routines, cognitive tools, and team structures used by the most successful seven-figure marketers to maintain peak creativity for years on end. We are going to explore the psychology of long-term staying power and why the most successful people in this industry are the ones who know when to lean in and when to step back. If you have ever felt like the digital world is moving too fast for you to keep up, this next series is designed to give you the calm, focused edge you need to win the marathon, not just the sprint. Prepare to shift from a mindset of survival to a mindset of legacy.